The views expressed on the following broadcasts do not necessarily reflect those of KHLT, Take 12 Radio, or our affiliates. The opinions on this show should not be considered as medical, psychological, or professional advice and are those of the host, co-host, and guest. Take 12 Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting are not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship.
One day at a time with its failures and fears, with portion of pain and burden of care, we must meet.
Welcome to Walking Through the Language of the Heart, a journey into the Grapevine writings of Alcoholics Anonymous co-founder Bill W. And now, here are your co-hosts, Chris S. and the Monty'man.
Indeed. I am the Monty'man, and with me, as always, is Chris S. And you have tuned into, as far as I know, the only podcast, at least to date, that covers line by line, page by page, the book, The Language of the Heart. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, what's happening, Monty? Hey, I did notice someone on Facebook is copying us.
What?
They started a workshop with Language of the Heart, and it says we're gonna go until we're done.
Well,
the only thing I can say is we're gonna finish before they do.
Yeah, that's right. We'll finish before they do. Well, good. That's great. That's I guess in the church world you would call that satelliting, right? You know,
satelliting, sure.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, and imitation is the greatest form of praise.
Yeah.
So
I love it.
I think we should be well pleased.
Yes, I am. So what are we doing this week, my friend?
Well, this is, I'm looking at the date on this. Of course, we're reading articles from the Language of the Heart, all the Grapevine writings of Bill W. This is July 1962, and I'm thinking to myself, Monty, I was in first grade when this was written. You know what I mean? Like, it's a long time ago. I just watched something came up in a feed on Facebook, and it was the Beatles in 1964 on the Shindig show. Do you remember? You remember the Shindig show?
I can't say that I do.
They had like the Beach Boys and all that stuff way back
Wow.
then. But anyway, just looking at that video and seeing like seeing the everything in context, that was a long time ago. I mean, there were more 56 Chevys on the road than anything else probably in 1962. So it's a long time. But what he's talking about is something that's timeless. He's talking about spiritual experiences. That's the title of the article we're going to go through today.
All right. Let's see what he has to say.
Okay. It is the intention of the Grapevine to carry occasional accounts of spiritual experiences. To this interesting project, I would like to say a few introductory words. There is a very natural tendency to set apart those experiences or awakenings which happen to be sudden, spectacular, or vision-producing. Therefore, any recital of such cases always produces mixed reactions. Some will say, I wish I could have an experience like that. Others, feeling that this whole business is too far out on the mystic limb for them, or maybe hallucinatory after all, will say, I just can't buy this business. I can't understand what these people are talking about. Bill talks from experience here. If you've read any of the biographies, I'm sure you have, and Bill's story and such, what he did was when he had his experience on the hospital bed and he got up and he dedicated his life to carrying the message to alcoholics, he put everything else as secondary to that goal. What he was doing was he was going and he was telling all these alcoholics about his white light experience. You see, he had a sudden and profound spiritual experience. I believe it's because he took quite a few of the steps on that hospital bed with Ebby. He acquainted him with his shortcomings. He made a decision to turn his will and life over to God. He decided that he was going to right all the wrongs that he possibly could. He knew he needed God's help and direction in his life. And when he got up out of bed, he went off and he started to, live really in a very basic kind of 10, 11, and 12, right out of his detox bed. So yes, he had a vital spiritual experience. Now I really want you to talk at least briefly about what you just went through this last weekend, because I bet you anything you saw some of those experiences that can happen very quickly. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely. I don't know that, we had any angelic visitations. That have been really cool. And I certainly would always welcome that. But so, listeners, I had the privilege of being part of and attending a workshop, if you will, that was put on by an organization called Came to Believe Recovery, that takes the methods that some of the founding folks, the real old timers, used to take people through the steps in a very short period of time. And we did it at a Salvation Army in Pasadena, California. So this is a place that it's huge. The complex is huge. And the folks there, what you and I may call clients or students, they call them beneficiaries, which I really like that. They were hesitant. Who are these guys coming in here telling us that we can work the 12 steps in 3 days kind of thing? And because a lot of the people that were there have had experience in 12-step fellowships, and for whatever reason are now finding themselves in a residential program. And so I watched as we went through the steps, starting with step 1 all the way through 12 in 2.5 days, thoroughly. And at the end of that time, the leading of these folks in the 12th step, bringing and watching them actually having a spiritual awakening as a result of the steps. I mean, it was like watching hundreds of people have a light bulb experience. The light came on. You could see it in their eyes. They wanted to argue on day 1. They wanted to kick against the goads on day 1. On day 2.5, they were walking on a cloud. My sponsor used to say, pink clouds are cool. Just make sure you have a parachute. Well, they had parachutes, right? They had practical application of the 12-step process that they could put together in 10, 11, and 12 and pass on to other people. And they were hungry to do it. I mean, there was not a dry eye in the place. Snot was running. Tears were running. Kleenex boxes were empty. It was an amazing thing to watch. And, some people might say, oh, that's just an emotional experience. It's just your flesh, Well, it's the best thing your flesh will ever do. It's the best thing your emotions will ever do. And what was great is we're not just leaving them to their own devices. They're came to believe AA meetings at the Salvation Army, teaching people how to have a spiritual awakening as a result of the steps. They're carrying the message on after we left. It was powerful. I'm still pumped about it. I still get goosebumps thinking about it.
So what you're talking about is, I'll use a couple of references. Many of us have had spiritual experiences, sometimes slowly, sometimes quickly. They will always materialize if we work for them. Sometimes slowly, sometimes quickly. They'll always materialize if we work for them. So we can work for them slowly, or we can work for them quickly.
Yeah.
They're going to materialize. Now, one of the things that you're going to run into, I guarantee you're going to run into, is people saying, "Oh, you can't do the steps in 3 days. There, there's no way I would have been able to do the steps in 3 years. I had to take my head out of my butt. It took me 6 months before blah 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 blah." And the people that are saying that are speaking. What they're doing is they're giving you an opinion that's not based on an experience. They're giving you an opinion. I used to hear, there was a guy who used to share in my first couple years, because it took him 4 years to do a four-step. He shared that everybody needs to take 4 years because there's just no way you can do it before 4 years. And this guy was dangerous. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Like, some people are dead before
Yeah.
4 years. So one of the great things to ask, I believe, is what's your experience? And Monty, you're sharing your experience.
Yeah.
So that's that as far as I'm concerned. You, you,
Sure.
you had a giant group of people, crying their eyes out. They've had a spiritual conversion experience right there in front of you. And when that happened to Bill on his hospital bed, he went to Dr. Silkworth, and he said, "Am I crazy? Am I crazy? I see things differently now. I'm sure I'm never going to drink again. I've got a purpose in my life. I've got to help alcoholics. Am I crazy?" And Silkworth said, "Maybe, but what you have right now is a lot better than what you had a couple of days ago, and
Amen.
you need to hang on to it.
Yeah.
That's what Dr. Silkworth said. You need to hang on to it." So these people that have gone through this weekend workshop, the people that are gonna make it and gonna stay sober and help other people are the people who are gonna continue.
Yeah.
They're going to continue to practice the principles that they experienced in your workshop. The
Yeah.
people where it just slowly kind of fades away.
Right.
This happens a lot with people going to treatment. They're all fired up when they get out of treatment, and you see them a year later, and it's almost like it's all worn off because the Oxford Group had a term for it. It was called continuance. Continuance was the disciplined, consistent practice of the spiritual principles. That was called continuance. And the people who continued
Mm.
were, they were the beneficiaries of such continuance. The people who allowed the worldly clamors to get into their way and take up their time are the ones that were really at risk. And they were the ones. If someone relapsed, it would almost certainly be because they fell short of consistent attention or obedience to spiritual principles. It says in the 12 and 12.
They
So
have they have a saying. It says, if you're going to say that you're stuck, I'm going to tell you you're not stuck. You stopped.
yeah,
And that's
yeah.
true. That's what happens. People get, like you said, the worldly clamors. They complete a program or whatever, and they're out in the world, and they're doing their job. They're doing,
So I got to tell a story now, and one of my friends, Steve from Nashville, he's got so much great material, and I'm always borrowing from him. And he tells a story. He went to a guy. He went to a guy named Howard who was renowned for his 11-step work, renowned for his prayer and meditation discipline. I mean, people from all over the place would seek his counsel. He was so deeply ingrained in that particular discipline. And this one day, Steve's at the same convention that Howard P. is at, right? And he goes, "Howard, listen, I was wondering if I could ask for a little bit of your time. I'm having some real trouble with meditation. I was wondering if you could help me." And Howard goes, "Oh, that's great. Oh, that's wonderful. Come with me. We're going up to my room." And he takes him up to his room, right? And he goes, "Okay, explain to me how you meditate." And Steve goes, "Well, that's the thing. I'm not really doing it." And Howard goes, "Oh, you don't have a problem with meditation. you have a problem with commitment. It's, I think that's so profound
That's
because
great.
so many of us, we don't have a problem with recovery.
Yeah.
We have a problem with turning our will and our lives over to the care of God is what we
Yeah,
have.
that's
Yeah,
right.
you know what I mean? That's what our
That's right.
problem is.
Yeah.
But because if you're going to do that, it's going to be followed up by some action.
Yeah.
And let's see what it says. As most AAs have heard, I was the recipient in 1934 of a tremendous mystic experience or illumination. It was accompanied by a sense of intense white light, by a sudden gift of faith in the goodness of God, and by a profound conviction of his presence. At first, it was very natural for me to feel that this experience staked me out for somebody very special. But as I now look back upon this tremendous event, I can only feel very specially grateful. It now seems clear that the only special feature of my experience was that it was electric suddenness and the overwhelming and immediate conviction that it carried to me. In all other respects, however, I am sure that my own experience was not in the least different from that received by every AA member who has strenuously practiced our recovery program. Notice that he uses the word strenuously practiced our AA program. What he's talking about there is he's saying the people who strenuously practice the 12 steps, especially 10, 11, and 12, those are the people who are going to receive this experience. And I can't believe how many times Bill tells us in these articles in the Grapevine, what our solution really needs to be.
Yeah.
He's very, very nice about saying the meetings are this and the meetings are that, and this is how you keep the meetings going, and these are the different meetings. But your recovery is gonna definitely hinge on whether you strenuously practice
Yeah.
the recovery program or the 12 steps. This is probably the 75th time he's said that in this book.
It reminds me of the statements like, you have to mean business. We meant business. I mean,
Yeah.
If you're going to go into a business agreement, there's a commitment there. There was a handshake, and there was a time when that meant everything, right? So, I mean, you are 100% sold.
They didn't give a lot of status to people that didn't mean business. How often do we sit in AA meetings and hear the speaker declare, "But I haven't yet got the spiritual angle"? Prior to this statement, he had described a miracle of transformation which had occurred in him. Not only his release from alcohol, but a complete change in his whole attitude toward life and the living of it. It is apparent to nearly everyone else present that he has received a great gift, and this gift was all out of proportion to anything he might have expected from simple AA activity, such as the admission of alcoholism and the practice of Step 12. So we in the audience smile and say to ourselves, well, that guy is just reeking with the spiritual angle, except that he doesn't seem to know it yet. We well know that this questioning individual will tell us 6 months or a year hence that he has found faith in God. That's a very interesting paragraph. We start to get better before we notice it. Other people notice it before us. That's a lot of times true.
Yeah, but I'm going to do a yeah, but there. What about the guy? So other people notice that we're getting better before we do. But what about the guy who wants everybody to know he's getting better? You know what I mean? It's like, come on, honey, give me $20. I haven't drank in over 2 years.
That doesn't sound like someone practicing recovery principles.
I guess not, right?
Yeah. I've met so many of these people in meetings over the years. This one guy came in one time. He raised his hand, and he's sober 3 days, and he's going to go back and tell his wife that he's in AA and everything's good, and
right.
He's got all these new friends. He's there like 3 days. So there's got to be an ego reduction as part of
Yeah.
this spiritual experience, and if the spiritual experience is based on the 12 steps, there will be. That doesn't mean that we're not going to hold on to some arrogance or whatever. It just means that we're really going to understand. We're going there'll be a right sizing of
Yeah.
one kind or another. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep. Sure do.
Moreover, he may by then be displaying spiritual qualities and a performance that I myself have never been able to duplicate, my sudden spiritual experience notwithstanding. So nowadays, when AAs come to me hoping to find out how one comes by those sudden experiences, I simply tell them that in all probability they have had one just as good, and that theirs is identical, except it has been strung out over a longer period of time. Notice that he doesn't give us, days, weeks, months, just a longer period of time.
Yeah.
These materialize for us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, but they're going to materialize if we work for them.
Sure.
Then I go on to say that if their transformation in AA extending over 6 months have been condensed into 6 minutes, well, they then might have seen the stars too. In consequence of these observations, I fail to see any great difference between the sudden experience and the more gradual ones. They are certainly all of the same piece, and there is one sure test of them all. By their fruits you shall know them.
Wow.
Monty, you saw a group of people have an experience over a short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was your experience last weekend, right?
Yeah. You bet. You bet.
This is why I think we should question no one's transformation, whether it be sudden or gradual. No one should, nor should we demand anyone's special type for ourselves, because our own experience suggests that we are apt to receive whatever may be the most useful for our needs. Wow, that is a really good way to put it. I criticized the guy who took 4 years to do his 4-step, right?
Mm-hmm.
Probably criticizing him for telling everybody else they need to take 4 years is a valid criticism. But I'm not going to criticize his experience with the 4-step. You know what I mean? He had an experience with the 4th and 5th step, and it might have taken him 4 years to do it. And we've also all known people who really put the priority of meeting attendance ahead of any recovery process, maybe misunderstanding the actual necessity of doing so. We've all met them in meetings. They're not drinking, they're going to meetings, and slowly their life is maybe getting a little bit better around the edges. But they too sometimes a decade into just going to meetings discover the book Alcoholics Anonymous, or someone who is is doing workshops or speaking or something, talk about the experience that they've never had.
Yeah.
And they go for that experience, and all of a sudden they're certainly spiritual converts to the 12 steps. Now, I've never met anyone that's criticized the 12 steps that have actually done them.
I haven't either.
The therapists and the people that want to talk down about 12-step recovery never paid the money back. never fully acquainted someone else about everything in their life. They don't have a prayer and meditation discipline, and they're not
Right.
taking other people through the steps. So yet they think that they can criticize the 12 steps. They're sharing an opinion on an experience they've never had.
Yeah. Yeah. I think two things. He says, by their fruits you shall know them. That is so true. I mean, you watch people and certainly the skeptics are watching us all the time. They got a close eye on us, right? And I tell my sponsees, go, that so-and-so and mom and her and your buddy, and they're watching you, man. They're watching you, but they want to know if you're real or not. And the thing is, you may not know some of the levels of pain they're going through. They may not be just watching you because they want to be critical of you. They may be watching you because they're looking for an answer, and you may be that answer. That fruit you produce may be that answer. The other thing here, I think that it's important for people to realize, and I love the way Bill doesn't discount other people's experiences. Because if you're spending so much time chasing signs and wonders, right, instead of them chasing you, if you're spending so much time trying to have the experience that looks like your buddies, you're going to miss yours. And it may be happening right now, and you're going to miss it because your head is in the other guys, you know.
Yeah.
And I think Bill really, he puts it in this article, he puts it out there so everybody can have their own, and it's just as valid. I did not have a white light experience when I finally surrendered to God. It wasn't like that. I don't even know if it was of the educational variety, but something happened, and it was, you know, I was like, yeah, why can't I put the plug in the jug? I'm going to meetings. I'm doing this. Why? I am praying so hard every day. And it wasn't an audible voice, but in my gut, it was like God was saying, when you stop depending on your prayers and you start depending on the one you're praying to, you'll stay sober. And it was a very quiet kind of thing. It was like, well, what a concept. I was depending on the methods and not the method giver. And I think that's what happens with people many times when they're meeting dependent or even step dependent rather than God dependent. But I wonder how much of my experience up to that point wasn't helping me get to that point, even though to other people it looked like I wasn't working a program. Does that make sense?
It does. And you know, I want to share something too that relates to the last 4 or 5 years of all of our experience. The people that were meeting dependent were in big trouble when COVID hit.
Yes.
They were in big trouble.
Many of them didn't live through it, brother.
No, I've gone back to meetings that I was going to pretty regularly prior to COVID, and 85% of the people are new people, different people, and that so listen, a meeting. I think everything starts at the meetings. I think going to meetings is the best possible spiritual atmosphere you can be in for exposure to and practice of this recovery work that needs to be done. There's no better atmosphere for it than to be in a fellowship. But we've said this a million times, the fellowship in and of itself, don't expect it to bring about a recovery.
Right. Yep. All right. Spiritual experiences. So do you have one? Hey, you want to share it with us? Send me an email, take12radio@comcast.net. All right, next week, the Bill W. Carl Jung letters.
That's going to get interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So hold on to your hats, folks. All right. Chris, thank you for another great show. This one was a little quicker than most. But hey, sometimes quicker is better.
Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly.
Yeah. Quicker is better unless you're baking a cake. All right, my friends, until our next broadcast, this is the Monty'man along with Chris S., and we are wishing God's perfect serenity for you. For more recovery workshops with Chris S. and the Monty'man, visit our website at take12radio.com and click on the Recovery Workshops banner.
This has been a broadcast of Take 12 Recovery Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.
This has been a Chicken and a Pig production.
Kitty, 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 kitty. Meow, meow, meow.
Woof, woof.